migraines and headaches and cannabis. First, do you know what causes headaches and migraines? Second, do you know how long the human history is with cannabis and head pain and the dozens of famous doctors who sang its praises? So, today we'll answer those questions, share the science, the advice on how to use the cannabinoids, along with one molecule you might not know about, and finish with a powerful anecdote of how cannabis helped change someone's life with migraines. I'm Lex Pelger. This is the Canna Education channel of CV Sciences, makers of these fine PlusCBD products. On the cannabinoids, ask me anything. And if you want to see all the science on this topic that I'm going to share, check out the new Migraines and Headaches page I just put together on CVResearch.info. We'll start with a little history thanks to Dr. Ethan Russo and this excellent historical review of cannabis and migraines. Because currently, migraines affect up to 15% of the world's population, and the treatments are lousy. Lots of side effects, and they often don't work anyway. Even the cutting-edge CGRP antibodies only work in half of patients. Meanwhile, you have Ayurvedic texts of India going back to the 4th century BCE on cannabis preparations for migraines. From ancient China to Egypt through the Greeks and the Romans, cannabis was known as a painkiller. Then in the first book of Arabic pharmacology, written by Sabor ibn Sal in the 1800s, he had a compound medicine containing cannabis for treating migraines that was applied in the patient's nostril, thus skipping the oral route. There's even a little modern migraine research on using the old Egyptian method of cannabis rectal suppositories. Anyway, this use of cannabis for migraines continued through the Arabic medicine of the Islamic Golden Age, and then into medieval Europe with Hildegard von Bingen, the famous 12th century abbess and mystic who wrote an influential herbal book on hemp for head pains. Then in the Renaissance, the influential physician and botanist Nicholas Culpeper wrote about using cannabis roots for inflammations of the head. Then John Russell Reynolds, the personal physician of Queen Victoria, shared a case report of a young woman with intractable migraines finally given complete relief by daily small doses of cannabis. In a still widely used quote, he said, "Indian hemp, when pure and administered carefully, is one of the most valuable medicines we possess." In relation to its use in headache, Reynolds said, "Migraine. Very many victims of this malady have for years kept their suffering in abeyance by taking hemp at the moment of threatening or onset of the attack." Then Silas Weir Mitchell, considered the father of medical neurology, sung the praises of cannabis for migraines, as did Dr. William Gowers, a founder of modern neurology. Then Edward Sagan, the president of the New York Neurological Society, said that he never allows his migraine patients to take opium or morphine, but instead a small but steady dose of cannabis. And that prophylactic effect is one that we'll come back to. And finally, we'll end this small selection of quotes from the many available options with Sir William Osler, considered the father of modern medicine, who stated of migraine treatment, "Cannabis indica is probably the most satisfactory remedy." So that's the history. But what about our other question? What causes migraines? And I bet you don't know, because nobody really knows. Because migraines aren't just severe headaches. They are intense, throbbing pain, often accompanied by nausea, vomiting, visual auras, and a sensitivity to light and sound. The cause seems to involve a host of hormonal changes, environmental triggers, genetics, and intricate mechanisms that we do not fully understand yet. One more active area of research is cortical spreading depression, which is a wave of electrical activity that spreads across the brain. Of course, we know from epilepsy that the cannabinoids can be excellent for calming down an overactive brain. There's also overactive neuroimmune cells that lead to compression of nerves in your head, and at least sometimes surgery on those nerves to relieve that pressure can help. And as we see with neuropathic pain, cannabinoids can be quite useful when major nerves are in trouble. And they can also target the release of CGRPs, which is the target of the newest pharmaceuticals for migraines because they seem to be involved in the inflammation. Also, THC can reduce the nausea via the serotonin system and modulate pain perception via its interactions with our endorphin system. CBD is also known for its anti-inflammatory properties and its ability to reduce anxiety, two factors that are known to exacerbate migraine symptoms. You also have a whole bunch of studies in humans and animal models where migraines are linked to dysregulation of our endocannabinoid system itself. And so it makes sense that using cannabinoids from outside the body to rebalance your own endocannabinoid system would work. So what does the science say on how cannabis works in humans with migraines? Well, there's a dearth of double-blind studies, but an overwhelming abundance of surveys talking to migraine sufferers. I'll focus on this one, but there's half a dozen more from just the last few years that you can see on CVResearch.info. In this survey of 1,300 plus people from a tertiary headache center, they reported using cannabis to treat their headaches and sleep concerns, with a majority of people reporting improvements in migraines. According to the numbers, 78% experienced reduction in migraine intensity, 73% had reduced duration of migraines, and 62% had reduced frequency of migraines. More than half saw declines in nausea, 81% had less sleep disturbances, 71% experienced less anxiety, 57% reported less depression, and 49% used less of other medications, and 14% completely eliminated other medications. The most popular cannabinoid profile being used by these patients was a mix of THC and CBD, with the most common delivery methods being either inhaled or edibles. For usage, 58% said they only use cannabinoids when experiencing a headache, while 42% took them as a daily prophylactic for prevention. Of the 20% who reported side effects, the most common was fatigue. Then, in a survey of people with persistent headaches, the majority of cannabis users reported it helped with the severity of their headaches, and a quarter of them said it reduced their frequency. For CBD, there's also this case report of a refractory migraine, which is one that's resistant to treatment, where a 37-year-old woman had been suffering migraine since the age of 11. With no help from NSAIDs, steroids, beta blockers, topiramate, triptan, muscle relaxants, anticonvulsants, antipsychotics, or lifestyle changes, her doctors finally started her on 20 milligrams of CBD per day and increased the dose by 25 milligrams a week for 4 weeks. By the end of that month, her symptoms had resolved. Now she takes 50 milligrams of CBD per day as a prophylactic. In terms of delivery methods, while edibles are good for longer relief, they can take anywhere from 20 minutes to 2 hours to start working. But for vaping, in this randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled crossover trial, they took adults with migraines and over the course of 4 separate migraine attacks, gave each of them vapes that contained either a placebo, 6% THC, 11% CBD, or a mix of 6% and 11% CBD. To keep the data clean, there was a washout period of 1 week between each treated attack. For the 92 participants in this trial and their 247 migraine attacks, the best vape for lowering overall pain scores was a mixture of THC and CBD. It also showed the most efficacy for pain freedom and freedom from the most bothersome symptoms. However, on the measurement of just pain relief itself, the THC dominant was the most superior. These treatments worked for up to 24 hours, and there were no serious adverse events recorded. Lastly, one molecule you might not know is PEA, the endocannabinoid-like molecule found in every cell of your brain and body that's intimately tied up with your immune system. It's also in our relief products. In this study of 64 people with migraines, 600 milligrams of PEA resolved headaches, lowered pain, and reduced rescue medication significantly more than placebo with no adverse events. This agrees with a previous study in people suffering from migraines with auras that showed 90 days of PEA to provide pain relief, as well as a study in children showing PEA reduced their migraine intensity and number of migraines. So what's the advice on how to use these cannabinoids? My first caution is that migraines are very individualistic, as are people's reactions to cannabinoids. So this is general advice, but everyone needs to find their own best regimen that works for them. As all those 19th century doctors said above, as soon as you feel the onset of a migraine, get some THC into your system. The starting dose for people not used to it is 5 to 10 milligrams in edible form, or a few small puffs if you're vaping or smoking. For edibles, be warned that some people tend to metabolize THC and get rid of it very quickly, and they may need quite high levels, perhaps even up to 100 milligrams. But always, always, always start low and go slow, because it might be 2 hours until the effects kick in. That's why some people prefer the vape or dry herb vaporizer. It's easier to titrate your dose because within 2 to 3 minutes, you are as high as you're going to get. So you can keep taking a sip off of your vape pen every couple of minutes until you find the sweet spot of pain relief, but not having too strong a psychoactive effect. Also, if you are using CBD as a prophylactic, that will help with the psychoactivity of THC. The anti-anxiety effects of CBD make it possible to take higher doses of THC. When taking CBD as a prophylactic, I would recommend full-spectrum hemp extracts because they also have the minor cannabinoids, the terpenes, the microdoses of THC, and the other plant components that all work together for better effects. The daily dose of CBD is probably in the 20 to 50 to 100 milligram range. And if you want to take THC every day as a prophylactic, like those 19th century doctors recommended, that range is probably as small as 5 to 20 milligrams per day in edible form. For using PEA for your migraines, the range I've seen in studies is generally 600 to 900 milligrams per day. Luckily, the most remarked upon thing in human studies at PEA is its safety and lack of side effects. So feel free to experiment to find what works best for you. And as always, feel free to reach out to me with questions. And I will end with a powerful anecdote from the book Marijuana Forbidden Medicine by the great cannabis doctor, Dr. Lester Grinspoon, and his comrade in arms, James Bacalar. This anecdote speaks both to the power of cannabis and how bad some of the other treatment options are. The author's right. As we have noted, cannabis was highly regarded as a treatment for migraine in the 19th century, yet the topic is almost untouched in the 20th century medical literature. Carol Miller, a classic migraine sufferer, describes her experience as follows. I first experienced a migraine in a classroom when I was 14. The sparkling, flickering visual effects, which were curious at first, consumed me so that I could not see the blackboard. I asked to be excused, let myself into the nurse's room, and vomited for several hours before my mother came to get me. After this had happened several times, my mother took me to see our doctor, a close family friend and neighbor whom I saw very often because I had a lot of allergies. He and my mother agreed that the headaches were caused by the recent death of my baby sister, and he gave me nothing for the nausea and pain. Although headaches continue with some regularity, it wasn't until college I was given the diagnosis of migraine and received medication. The college infirmary prescribed Ecotrin, which is coated aspirin, which helps somewhat with the headache, but not with the visual effects or the nausea. It also gave me tremendous heartburn. One time the pain was so severe that they gave me an injection of Demerol, a synthetic opioid, which pretty completely wiped out the pain but left me very lightheaded. At times I took a banana-flavored syrup, probably codeine, which made me very sleepy. I remember that it was difficult to make it through final exams because I was so lightheaded that my asthma got very bad during this period. After graduation, while working at Indiana University, I saw a private physician who prescribed Moodrain, a combination including ephedrine and phenobarbital, which he warned was habit-forming. I quit taking them because they seemed to make my blood pressure so low I could hardly work. After moving to San Francisco, I was given Darvon, which is propoxyphene, another opioid. But I took it only briefly because it gave me a rash. I had been taking aspirin with codeine, but found it constipated me terribly. When I became pregnant with my first child, I was very concerned about medication. A friend told me I couldn't take any medication safely and suggested I rely on herbs. I was studying herbal healing and preparing for a natural birth, so this sounded right to me. I tried Skulap tea, a light valerian and chamomile tea, and then lavender. The teas were soothing, and the slower life pace after quitting work helped. Migraines became rare. Several years later, migraines returned, and my husband said he read that marijuana was good for headaches. I was amazed. 2 hits and a short rest completely warded off the nausea and headache. As soon as I noticed flickering visuals that forewarned me of an approaching migraine, I could take a little cannabis and a short nap, and the migraine would not develop at all. I was usually ready to go back to work in a half hour. It gave me a feeling of tremendous power to finally be in such control of my migraines. In the 18 years since I began using cannabis to relieve migraines, I've been caught away from home several times without my herb. Once I tried taking Tylenol and found that it helped a little with the pain, but not at all with the nausea or the visual effects. Both of my older daughters, now 17 and 21, also get occasional migraines, which first appear when they began to menstruate. Both get tremendous relief from cannabis herb. My mother suffers from severe headaches, but she has never used cannabis because it is illegal. She has a horrible time with medications prescribed for her: nausea, constipation, high blood pressure. I often tell her that when marijuana is legal and she uses it for the first time and realizes how she has suffered unnecessarily all these years, she is going to be really furious.